It's called Elevate, Delegate. I don't know if either one of you guys have ever heard of this. I absolutely love it. If you can just visualize real quickly, it's 4 quadrants. Basically, it's things that you're good at, things that you're not good at on the top. And I believe on the side, it's things that you like to do and things that you don't like to do. So the thought process and the logic is when you have things that you suck at and you hate doing them, you have got to get them off your desk. Now, if you're a startup and you're a one-man show,
All right, guys. Well, welcome back to another edition of the Better Contractor. Today, I'm joined with my normal co-host, the professor, Travis. Travis, what's up, man?
Good to see you.
Where's your scar or your pipe?
I did bring it as a prop, but yeah, this thing hasn't been smoked in maybe like 5 years, so it's legitimately just a prop at this point. What
Next podcast is no longer a prop.
Add to the persona.
I like it. And we're joined by Chance with Agile, one of the marketing firms I trust, use personally, and respect. Chance, welcome.
Thank you, man. Thank you for having me. Appreciate it.
Yeah, absolutely. So we'll get kicked off. Chance, tell me a little bit about yourself, Agile, and a question I always kind of like to know is how you got started. So take us back to the beginning of your journey and what made Agile, why'd you start it, and kind of just give us a little brief background of it.
Yeah, absolutely. I did what I'll say not every, but most people that are my age, I think in society for us that are around, 40, 45 years old, it was like when you graduate high school, if you don't go to college, you're a loser. So I went and did the college thing just like everybody else. I think I was on academic probation like 3 times, maybe 5. Doesn't matter. Found out I just hated school. I'll be honest with you. I really don't think there's ever been a college class that I have taken that I could not get an A in. I just hated school. I hated learning about shit that I didn't want to learn about and having things forced down my throat that weren't interesting to me, and just cared more about, bar life and partying than I did school. But that hits you hard after school, right? So I took a financial advisor job right out of college. And I was actually pretty successful in it. I was in Chicago at that time. I was actually the number 1 producing agent in the entire country for, at that time, was the 2nd largest insurance company in the world in my class, and like the entry level class. So I was successful at it, but I absolutely hated it. There was something that always felt weird about being a 24, 25-year-old kid asking a 65-year-old to roll over their entire retirement account because I'm the best person to handle that. So didn't like the job. From there, I took a job, another corporate job, recruiting in financial services, because I knew the ropes of that industry and that world. Wasn't nearly as successful there. Never really got my feet underneath of me, and just found myself lost. At that time I was, we'll say when this process started, 28, 29 years old. And I just had no sense of purpose. It's like I would make money, but which is like what society tells us we need to do, right? Is like, go to college, go get a job and make money. It's like I was making money. I had a 6-figure job, but I was just miserable. Like every day of my life, I was miserable. So I ended up having an acquaintance from college, a guy I didn't really know, who had started a digital marketing firm. And he recruited me to come work for him, essentially. He's like, hey, man, would you like to do sales? And I'm like, well, I mean, that's naturally just what I've always done. So we got to talking about it, and I went down this road, and I went through some tough times, even making, $70,000 to $100,000 in Chicago back then even was like welfare in that city. I mean, hell, my portion of the rent with 2 roommates back then was almost $2,000 a month. It was just hard. It's just hard to comprehend, But I'd went through some financial troubles and problems, made some piss poor decisions, if I'm being honest, had a car repossessed, had a girlfriend that wasn't going anywhere. And it just felt like I was going on 30 years old at this just kind of rock bottom point in life. But this digital marketing stuff really interested me. So the truth is the first book I ever read about it was Digital Marketing for Dummies. And then I read SEO for Dummies. And again, you're talking, this was 13 plus years ago now, just to try to learn what the hell this stuff was. And the more I read about it, it was just like this light bulb moment. Like I was intrigued and I was interested in Like it got my juices flowing like nothing I'd ever been around had before. So I kind of hit this point where I was like, why the hell would I go work for this guy? I really don't have anything to lose. This relationship I'm in with this girlfriend's not going anywhere. My job sucks. I had a car repossessed 6 months before that. I owed my parents money. And I was just like, what do I have to lose? If I go do this and I lose everything right now, what do I have to lose? And the answer was truly nothing other than some money and time. So I decided I was going to go for it and start my own company. So moved to St. Louis to do that. I initially had a business partner the first few years in the business, which I bought out, which was an absolute nightmare. Another story for another day. Didn't think I could do it on my own. So teamed up with somebody who did have some business experience, though it wasn't necessarily successful, and started the company. And in our first full year of business, we did $1 million in revenue, which was, really hard for me to comprehend. I was literally making, more money by the end of that year than I was ever up to that point. But I had a lot of things go in my favor. I had my boss in the job that I left. He knew what I was doing. We had a great relationship. So he let me file for unemployment. So I strung that check out for a little while just to make ends meet, and was paying myself like $1,000 a month out of the business in the beginning to get to that point. But we grew exceptionally fast and just had a lot of success from there. And, now I have other companies that I own. I invest in real estate and things of that nature. But this is my life, and I am an entrepreneur for life. I mean, I could honestly say if I lost everything today, like for some odd reason, I lost everything today, tomorrow I would wake up and figure out what my plan of attack is to start another business. There is no way in hell I would ever go back to working for anybody. This is what I was put on earth to do. And there's not a lot of us that can do this and handle this grind and be successful with it, because it's hard. The failure rates are through the roof, but yeah, that's my story in a nutshell. And I'm happier than I've ever been in my life. I've got a great wife, 2 beautiful, healthy kids, and a business that has grown rapidly over the years. And this was God's path for me, no questions asked.
Yeah, I love that entrepreneurial spirit, obviously.
Yeah.
In your comment about the very beginning, that resonates too, because I started this company fairly young, my wife and I did. And that was kind of my mindset too, was what do I have to lose? I don't own anything. I don't own a house.
Exactly.
I have a truck, and that was it. So if you want to take my truck, then so be it. But it was that mindset of, let's just do it. Let's just see what happens. But yeah. No, I totally get that.
It's easy to keep your head down and moving forward when there's really nothing to lose. You know what I mean? Like it would be so much harder to do it now. Even if I strip out my lifestyle, my lake house, $1 million boat, all these vehicles, house, my kids going to private school, even if I had to give it all, that would be really hard to give up right now. You know what I mean? To start over, it would be brutal, but I know it can be done. And if I made it in the circumstances that I made it in, dumb as a box of rocks, no experience, all I had was grit and grind. Well, I still have that. So even if I had to let everything go, I'm confident that I would find my way in whatever my next journey would be if it came down to it. If you're wired this way, you're wired this way.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I totally agree. One thing about Agile that stood out in the beginning to me was you guys are different. I think you'll know kind of where I'm going with this. You guys are different than other marketing firms that we've used or that we've had, quote the work or whatever. You guys are a lot more data driven. I wanted to see if you would elaborate just a little bit on and I think that probably is part of your growth.
Yeah.
Can you tell me just a little bit more about that?
Yeah.
Mindset?
Yeah. I mean, in general, data never lies. And that's where so many people get so construed in the marketing world. I see way too many businesses, especially in their early days. The website has to be perfect. The logo has to be this perfect logo. They have to have this amazing business plan outlined, and they have to have this perfect marketing plan that they're going to go execute. Well, hate to break it to you, but 90% of that shit is not going to go as planned. That's just owning a business. And it's no different within marketing. So our approach has always been very black and white. You can sit there and spend thousands of dollars making this amazing video for this ad, or you can record one with your phone. Believe it or not, what I have seen over 12 plus years of experiences, the damn things that are recorded with a phone tend to do better. The best performing ads in the history of Facebook and YouTube were actually recorded on iPhones, believe it or not. like the highest performers ever. So it's one of those things that I think a lot of people overthink it. And they, I'm not saying you don't want things to look good and professional and clean and so on. Like I get that. But I think now more than ever, people want to do business with people. They don't want to do business with advertisements. And the more real that you can be and authentic that you can be, and then use that data to your advantage to push more of those messages out that actually perform, the better off you're going to be. But we don't play the guessing game here. Do we roll out new strategies and initiatives that we don't know are going to work and test those waters? Yes, of course. If we're not doing that, we're not doing our job. But just as much as you might think you have a great idea, you've got to be just as willing to pull the plug if it's not working and performing. So everything that we do is about data because, again, it does not lie. This is why having tracking systems, CRMs, all the different things, depending on what your business is and how it functions, is so vital because it does not lie. So that is our approach to everything. That's how we make campaign decisions. That's how we make proposal decisions. It's all based off of what we have access to and what we're looking at in real live time as to what is working and what is not, for that matter.
Yeah, no, that's perfect. I know it's been a little bit of an eye opener for me as far as like from the marketing realm of, being on one side and kind of being told one thing. And then I remember the first time you and I spoke, I'm like, I love this data approach because it's a little bit different than what I've always been, dealt with or whatever. Yeah.
Most marketing agencies, man, they're so fluffy. It actually like pisses me off. It's like, at the end of the day, how's it working? The fluff stuff can be great. But at the end of the day, is it performing or not? It's that simple. It's really that simple. And again, that data doesn't lie.
Yeah. Yeah. Let's back up just a second. I'm putting myself in a young entrepreneur's shoes. What is something you think? So if you were back to a young contractor just getting started, you're 25, you're 30 years old, or another young entrepreneur, what is something you would tell that person?
Man, that's a great question. You're not ready, and that's okay.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, nobody is ready for this. Hell, I've learned things in the last 6 months that I haven't dealt with prior to this point, like hard shit that I had to go through, scary shit, scary times, people issues. I don't want to say I had a cash flow issue, but but even with this economy, like we've had some turnover. I have clients now coming back that let us go 4 months ago because they were freaking out. So it's been tough, but you're never prepared as a young entrepreneur. You're never prepared. And if you can just embrace the fact that you're going to be in over your head forever and just embrace that and embrace adversity and truly get the mindset and the attitude of, I am going to get kicked in the teeth every single day, week, month, quarter, year, whatever, however you want to look at it. But I have to learn something from every single mistake that I make and lesson that I learn. That's the biggest thing, is you have to learn. Like I have time periods now where when I go through something and something's on fire, whatever it is, because there's always something, I truly like make myself take a step back. I get alone somewhere, preferably on a tailgate of my truck in the country where I can just look at the sun. And I just breathe and I'm like, what was the lesson here? What did I learn? What am I going to do to make sure this doesn't happen again? Because the mistakes and the adversity is what sinks most small businesses. It's not just about the grit. It's the fact that they don't learn and they make those mistakes again. So to me, that is the biggest thing that I would tell a young entrepreneur is you're never prepared. It's always going to be ugly. You're going to have amazing days, but you're going to have way more shitty days. And you're going to have way more days where you feel like you're running in mud than you're like accelerating like a roller coaster. It's just part of it. But if you can get your mindset to just embrace that suck and just embrace that it's always going to be hard, and find ways to like enjoy that process and know that every time that you're getting drugged through the mud, something great is on the other side. Brent, I'm sure you would agree with me, man. If the worst shit that you've ever been through in your entire business, was there not something great on the other side?
Yeah, every time. And
every single time.
Yeah. And I think you would probably agree too, as you've gotten bigger, the problems have also gotten bigger.
Absolutely.
But in the beginning, all those little problems kind of got you set up and prepared for now though.
Yep, absolutely.
Yeah.
I mean, that is one thing that Andy Frasilla said to me, having a beer however many years ago. I know you and I were in Arate at the beginning, but him and I were hanging out and I was going through some stuff and we were talking about it, and he's like, look, man, you just need to understand right now, like as you get bigger, your problems are going to get bigger. They're never going away. And that's the thing with entrepreneurship. Your problems are never, ever, ever going to go away. They're actually just going to grow in magnitude. And something that was $30,000 in your first or second year is now $300,000. So it hurts more and it's harder. But again, I love what you said. The further you get along, I call it scar tissue, right? The more of these injuries that you take, the more scar tissue that you build, the more ready that you are to handle them. But it still doesn't mean you're not going to get knocked in the teeth harder than ever before and have to pick yourself up off the floor. It's just part of it. But like I said, I think in summary, not to sound so repetitive, but man, I think that people just need to learn in business that your problems are never going to stop. And if you can just accept that and accept your attitude and how you're going to attack them as they come, it's a game changer because it's never going to end. So you might as well embrace it and learn how to handle it.
Yeah. Yeah. Just curious, as we're on entrepreneurship, what do you think about like entrepreneurs' ability to act quickly, like to make a decision, to just move forward, even if like, hey, most people would have gotten scared in that moment or like, that's not really worth it. Whatever the case may be, it seems like most entrepreneurs that are successful are able to make a decision, move forward, correct that decision later if needed, but they at least had the ability and stuff to act, like they acted immediately.
You got to act quick, man. I think that's a key. I always say I live and die with my gut instincts. And fortunately, knock on wood, that they've been right way more than they've been wrong. Have they been wrong? Yeah, they've been wrong, but they've been right way more than they've been wrong. And that's why I think successful entrepreneurs, I think they're just wired different. Like they have a mentality of aggressiveness. They have a mentality of grit, and that they're not going to get beat down. No matter what they do, they're going to get back up, and they're never ever going to stop. Like stopping or quitting has never been an option for me from day one ever. But I do think that there is a huge thing in making decisions, being able to make decisions. It's kind of like we talked about, like the perfect logo, the perfect website. People worry about all this shit. It's like, man, you're not selling anything. You need to go sell before you're worrying about a whole bunch of ancillary things that aren't actually moving the needle. A lot of that is lack of decision making. Dude, you can get a new logo. You can revamp your website. You can pivot your marketing plan. Like these things don't have to be perfect out of the gate because again, most of that, man, I couldn't even tell you where the business plan that I wrote was when I started this company. I don't even know where it's at. Like it is so gone, lost. Our model's completely different. Our services aren't the same. Where we thought we were going to go, we didn't. Like it's gone, So
same. We actually didn't have one even. And it's a completely different business name now too. So
well, I feel like it's something the MBA students want to write. It's like, man, the best thing you can do is just get your damn hands dirty and go. Like, that's the best thing you can do.
Oh yeah, no, I agree. Travis, you've been oddly quiet. Your turn to ask a question.
So, one on the data and then the path chosen. I'll come back to the data. So the path chosen, it's going to be hard either way. I mean, I heard somebody, whether it was a book or somebody I was listening to, was talking about the path that we choose in life, whether it's entrepreneurship or it's going to work for somebody. It's going to be hard either way. It's just you're going to choose what type of crap you deal with and the level of it. So if you choose the corporate route, you can see success there. You're going to deal with different levels that are probably just as hard as if you went through the entrepreneur route, in the sense that, but you can hit walls. Whether it's the bureaucracy or lack of freedom of movement or lack of financial rewards, your lack of ability to maneuver and position your life in the direction that you want it to be, the time with your family, you're going to be dictated to as an employee, which are going to have different levels of things that make your life hard. It's going to be hard either way. It's just that at the end, one of that maybe the outlets is going through the entrepreneurial path. If you're willing to go through the crap and the level of crap, you get the rewards at the end. In the corporate or employee world, that's not necessarily the case. You're going to have a boss, and you're ultimately working to make their business successful. And then there's some people that are just built for one or the other. But with what you were saying, with you just felt like you weren't in the right place. Coming
Mhm.
out of college, you did what society tends to tell us to do, that any other option, you're just going to live a life of destitution and poverty and scrape to get by if you don't go down the go to college, go work for somebody route. And then there's probably people that chose the careers that you passed on that love it, that are thriving. So it's not necessarily the industry. You just knew it wasn't right for you. Uh, and luckily, with your story, young enough to pivot and being willing to pivot, without, because that's another common theme that people later on in life bring back is, if you're young, that's your time to experiment, because as you were talking, it just gets harder.
Yeah.
You have more dependencies, you have more things that if you pivot later on in life, you're you pivot regardless. There's going to be a time that you're figuring things out, and it's not going to all go as planned. And so when you're pivoting later on in life, you have less years that if that falls on its face for you to pivot again, and maybe pick yourself up, and you have maybe other dependencies. There's more of the younger generations that have started to realize, one, we had kind of our parents' generation was maybe a physical example of uh, the old story. You go to school, you get a degree, you go work for a company for 20, 30 years, and then you retire into your golden sunset years, and they give you a watch, and you're set. It was our parents that went through the turbulent corporate times where the mass layoffs, and saw that system was broken with them, in that there wasn't that loyalty necessarily. And I think that started to resonate within some of our generation and below. And that continues to happen. And that's not necessarily the model. We see it with our own eyes, but that mantra of, if you're going to be successful, you have to go get a degree and then go work for somebody, still gets propagated. But I think less and less are buying into it now. And at least just seeing that there's other options, opening their eyes that if there's not just a fixed path, that there are other options. And we can get into the education system, to was geared and shifted around the first industrial revolution, and the Prussian education, which is socialist, communist, Marxist, came over about the same time too, and geared the education system to train people to go work in organizations. Fortunately, I think with technology and access to information, some of that stuff isn't broken. The younger generations aren't just so willing to just accept it, but are willing to maybe explore and go see what options are available. For the marketing piece, so pivoting quickly to the so to tie that one up is the pivoting early. You know, here's a question, but I want to come back later to the data piece, because that resonates with marketing gimmicks versus ROI. How do you know the difference? And where data has allowed us to shed light and do different things with the marketing realm, that actually justify putting effort into it. But the pivoting while you're young and being able to fail, that's kind of or fail, and not suffer the consequences as badly. So now that we do have a few generations that have bought into the, well, I'm going to go work for a corporate job, I got degrees or whatever, and now I find myself in my 30s or 40s, and I've known for the last 10 years or whatever that this is not the place I want to be. But now they've got dependencies. They realized a little bit later the same thing that you did, Chans and Brent, early on, of, I know that this route's maybe not for me, but I've been told this is the path I have to take, and so they went down that path further into their 30s. Maybe they started a family, maybe they don't. Maybe they got a house and a mortgage, and now they've got a decade's worth of career as an employee. Is it too late for them to pivot? It's definitely going to be tougher. So for any of those that are maybe listening to this that aren't young and scrappy, coming out in their teens and their 20s, but maybe they just went down the wrong path a little bit longer and want to escape and pivot, what advice would you have for them?
I mean, I think you have to know who you are. I think that's the key, and I don't, it's easier said than done, because I don't feel like mean, I think we all grow and evolve as people, right? We all find out who we are more over time and what we can and can't handle. But I think that you really have to look in the mirror and ask yourself, like, am I willing to take this risk? Because there is not a successful entrepreneur on earth that hasn't taken risk. The corporate job is safe. And look, it's nothing bad about corporate jobs. To your point, I have employees. We need somebody at McDonald's to flip burgers. I'm not hating on employees. It has nothing to do with that. I'm just saying that it takes a special wired person to be a successful entrepreneur. I think a lot of people want to be entrepreneurs, but they can't do it because they're not willing to take the risks that need to be taken, and they don't have the grit and grind to do it. It doesn't make them a lesser person. It doesn't make them anything. It's just, we're not the same. Everybody is different. We're not all the same people. And it's a small percentage of people that can do this thing and be successful at it because of how hard that it is. And it takes mental strength and grit that's really, really hard. And I just think that's a fact of it. But, to answer your question, somebody that's maybe past that turning point that does have things to lose, I think it just comes down to, do you have the guts to do it? And if you've got the guts to do it, then you probably can do it. If you don't, that's okay. You're probably not that person. But it's really just about looking in the mirror and saying, can I do this? Am I willing to have I will never quit attitude? And I'm going to put whatever, my marriage, my family, whatever it is on my back. And I am not going to stop until I win. Can you be that person that can live outside of that fear box of just letting the fear of the unknown consume you every day and stay in the lane that you need to be on, which is focused on growing your business? Do you think you're that person or not? To me, it's really that simple.
Yeah, no, I think that's good. And on the mental toughness part, one question I did have for you: what was a major challenge? I like asking business owners this as well. What was a major challenge that you've had over the years where, it obviously every day is a challenge. There's stuff out all the time. What was something major that happened, and how did you guys work through it as a team?
Yeah. Hell, I've had a lot of them. I would say the biggest challenge that I had was having a business partner. A business partner that did not hold his weight, a business partner that came to work at noon and left at 4, a business partner that was a shitty person that treated my team like crap, and getting rid of that. I haven't been through a marital divorce. I hope I never go through one, but I'm not really sure what the difference would be between that and a business divorce. They are brutal. This was so bad and confrontational that at the actual closing, I had to be physically restrained from killing him. It was not pretty, and it aged me. It took years off my life, because at that point, this kind of ties into what Travis just asked. At that point, I was not 29. At that point, I was married. At that point, I had a baby on the way, and I was going through all that. And it was like, holy shit. If this doesn't go well, if this doesn't end up in my hands, if I can't buy him out, if I can't control this business and these circumstances, what am I going to do with my family? And it was really, really, really hard. I learned a ton of lessons through that. A couple of quick takeaways for anybody that is on this call. These things all worked out to my advantage, but they wouldn't have if it would have been differently. If you have a business partner, you need to have a buy-sell agreement. I don't give a shit if you go print one off of Google and use it. You have to have something in place. Is it better to get an attorney to do it? Yes, it is. But you have got to have a buy-sell agreement. You have got to have an operating agreement when you get in bed with other people. Business partners can be the greatest thing ever. I've seen it work. When you have business partners that have different skill sets that complement each other, it can be a beautiful thing. But when it's not, it is absolutely brutal. And I have mentored people that have went through this. I've been a shoulder for people to complain to, cry to. I've heard it from everybody because I went through it, and I've helped a lot of people through it because I know how damn hard it is. But you guys, if you are getting into business, I don't care if you don't feel like you can afford the document. You need to find a way to afford the document. You have got to protect yourself and the business. Get those documents in place. In my circumstances, we didn't have a single client that even knew who the hell my business partner was. And we did not have a buy-sell agreement. So my options for him were pretty simple. You can either get nothing, or I'm going to leave this business, you can either take my check, my offer, or I'm going to leave this business and take every single client with me because they know me. And, I'm sure he doesn't agree with that or like it to this day, all these years later. I don't give a shit. But it worked out for me, but it could not have. So everybody, you have to have those documents in place if you have business partners. It might seem like they're the best family member, the best friend. Oh, that would never happen to me. This guy was a friend of 15 years and we've never spoke again since. So just saying, it's vital.
Yeah. I think that goes back to, I think back to like our beginning, and there was a few things, even though we didn't have money, and we really probably, most people would not have done it. We did hire a decent attorney in the beginning to get some basic documents like you just talked about in place. We did find a good accountant right off the bat, because I didn't know anything about tax law, and our business was working in other states fairly early on, and I didn't know anything about their tax law. So, going in and finding that trusted resource for that. And marketing, like it wasn't Agile, it was a different company way back then. We hired a company that knew way more about marketing than I did, just to have those things kind of covered in a professional way. And again, like you said earlier, Chance, it doesn't have to be perfect, and it still wasn't perfect. But at least, you young entrepreneurs getting started, don't not spend any money to try to save it, because usually that will end up saving you in the long run eventually, as that point there. Yeah.
Absolutely. Yeah. I mean, it's all important. And look, these are all business decisions, right? You got to figure out the battles you're going to pick and choose. But to me, like, having your legal documents it's not a decision. You need to do it.
Mm-hmm.
Period. Like, it's really not subjective. If you can't come up with the money to pay an attorney to get the documents, you shouldn't start the business. Yeah. It's just that simple.
Legal and tax both are that way.
Yeah.
Make sure it's done right in the beginning.
Absolutely. I haven't had any accountants that have like hurt me or screwed me over per se, but I'm on my 5th accountant in 12 years. And let me tell you, I was playing in the minor leagues and now I'm in the big leagues. Like, I have somebody that looks at every single loophole. I'm not committing tax fraud. I don't have offshore slush funds, but if you're not taking advantage of taxes with a badass CPA, you're literally losing. I mean, I've lost well over $1 million from previous accountants easily in taxes that I paid that I shouldn't have because I didn't have a tax strategist. There's a big difference between having a badass tax strategist / CPA and having a bookkeeper. They are not the same. Keeping your books is one thing. It's a whole nother thing to look at, the multiple properties that I own and different assets. And I mean, hell, Brent, you're like 100x me just because of assets and equipment and things. Like, mine's much more simple from that perspective. But man, if you don't have somebody that can help you work through those loopholes, you will get eaten alive by taxes.
There's a dichotomy in all of this, in that, and it's something that comes up too with entrepreneurs in general. Of, I think it was like Mark Cuban or something, like on the Shark Tank, or it might have been Robert, had said that had I known everything that I know now about starting a business, running a business, I would have never even started. And that was kind of like a superpower in the beginning. And like, I didn't know everything, all the crap that I was gonna have to go through, all the pitfalls, and we just kind of worked through it. So on one hand, you get like, hey, you've got it. So we've talked a little bit about this with safety and with marketing, and doing things correctly in certain industries from the very beginning, and like having a really good safety strategy. So marketing would be the same. So on one hand, and there's a balance between, well, I've got to go out and generate revenue, and that's most important. We said at the top of this podcast, like, you need to get out there and get your hands dirty. That's the most important thing. It doesn't have to be perfect. But then the dichotomy is we've got things that have been learned, like with what you both just mentioned, legal and taxes. Like, those are critical maybe in the beginning to get right, which might, especially, well, Brent, you said you did it right from the beginning. Like, those would be, if there were
not perfect, just better than what I
get something started in
Yeah.
those realms, going in the right direction. But those do need to be focused on. So if those are critical components that need to be paid attention to, even at the very beginning, when they're just trying to go knock on doors and get sales, how do you find? So, Chance, you were saying having the badass CPA, and then the lawyers too. But if somebody was going out now, they just started, or maybe they got the business, how do they go find those? What were the strategies? What should they be looking for making sure that they've got somebody who's going to have their back and is forward thinking versus just reactionary?
Yeah, it's a great question. And one thing that I was just churning through my mind over and over and over again as you were saying everything you just said is, I think Brent hit the nail on the head. It's not about having it perfect. It's just about starting somewhere. So like when I look at I'm on my fifth CPA, when I look at that, the first CPA that I had, if I was still with him right now, I'd be the biggest client that he has, no questions asked. My point is that he was fine then, but I outgrew him. Okay. And then I had a couple others in there. Actually, I think I lied. I think I'm only on my fourth CPA. But the other two that I had in there, I think they like serve purposes for having, a $2, a $3, a $4 million company getting to those types of revenue dollars, but they still weren't perfect. And again, they were CPA. So I actually have a money team right now. The same guy that handles my investments, my life insurance policies. He's also a business and tax strategist. So he looks at my trust. I don't meet with my CPA without him. Him and my CPA literally get on calls and they fight about what we can do and how we can do it to stay above water, make sure we're legal, but we're taking advantage of everything that we possibly can. So now it's like I have a quote unquote team of people. But where I'm going with this is that I'm not sure that I have advice on like how to go pick the right CPA for you. I think the better advice for me is as Brent said, you got to start somewhere. But I think you've got to be very proactive in reevaluating the team that you have, especially as you grow. Like right now, again, my initial CPA, like the things that I do with my taxes now and the way I move money around and show losses in one business to benefit another one and turn real estate into rentals. And even though I don't rent it, one business rents it from the other business, just things of that nature, like higher level tax strategy. Do you need that when you have a $500,000 a year company? No, you probably don't, unless you inherited some assets or money or something. You don't need that. So to me, it's not about like picking the perfect person out of the gate. It's about evolving and understanding, like I'm outgrowing this person and constantly looking at your numbers and getting opinions from other people. It doesn't make you unloyal. It doesn't make you a shitty client for them. You're doing what's best for your business. So to me, it's more so about how you grow and evolve and level up your team as you grow than it is about finding the perfect person out of the gate. Because more than likely, the person that will take you on as a client now is not the perfect person that would take you on as a client at $10 million in revenue, for example. They're different levels of the game.
That's a good point, and I'll kind of back you up on that, Chance. So we're on our fourth, accounting firm as well, third law firm, and third bank. Because each one of them we either outgrew or went outside their area of expertise. So that's a good point. As you grow, that is going to cause you to need someone different or maybe more of a specialist in a certain area. So that's a good point.
Yeah, I mean, I think it's just part of the evolution of a growing business. To think that like Apple, when it was started out of whoever the hell's garage it was, can have the same people that they have now. I mean, it's no different for a small business. You know what I mean? Like I get it. I guess it is different, but you get the point, right? At one time, that business was worth nothing, and they just needed a CPA to do their bookkeeping and file taxes. That's not the game now. They probably have 200 CPAs on their staff to do what they have to do. So, it just changes, and it's about, again, it's about awareness. To me, I've always said in entrepreneurship, awareness is a superpower. You've got to have awareness. Like, okay, look, I hired this guy when we were a startup. Now we're doing $1 million in revenue. Is this still the right guy? Now we're doing $2 million in revenue. Is this still the right guy? And I would say push yourself to go get an opinion from another CPA. It costs you $0. Get them your books, get them your shit. And if they don't bring anything to you that sells you or makes you realize or feel like you're leaving money on the table, then you're probably still with the right guy. If they bring a bunch of things to you about how to move money around and different assets to buy and where you should move money, like my money guy now, like just as an example, he literally just sent me a text message last week. He's like, Chance, what is this $250,000 sitting in this savings account? And I'm like, it's just sitting, it's capital, man. Like that's like backup money or what. He's like, that's fine. It's making 2%. We can move it right here and make 5.5 right now with zero risk. Well, shit, on 250 grand, that adds up pretty quickly. Like I need people like that on my team because I don't have time to do that. It's not my superpower. It's not what I want to do. So now I have people that are constantly looking at bank accounts and leverages that I can use and assets. And now he's coming to me saying, move this over here, man. It's just free money. It doesn't cost anything. Just wire it. So I wired it. But I want somebody like that is looking out for me consistently to help me make the right moves to make me as much money as possible.
And it's probably a great segue. So I was bringing up the data piece earlier that I wanted to bring the question. So data it hasn't always been available to us. Marketing, what you were saying, a lot of other marketing agencies out there that are kind of in this fluffy world, and I think a lot of times marketing does get, and especially historically, it was gut feeling, the Mad Men ads type environment where they've just been in the industry and they know how human behavior and psychology works. So you throw up a billboard and you drive consumer behavior in a certain direction. It was smoke and mirrors and alchemy, if you will, to get marketing right, and then just people trying to copy what other people would do, and the industry devolved into, and there's other industries that are similar to it, like learning development has struggles with this too, but validating what they're doing is actually what they should be doing, and it's actually benefiting the company. So I'm going to buy ads. I'm going to go sponsor the Grammys. I'm going to go do these crazy things, and it's going to get its attention, and it's going to drive traffic. You're like, okay, well, how? Show me how that did. Well, I can't. I mean, just look at the bottom line. Well, there's any number of factors that could have potentially led to the revenue growth, not just your ad placement at the World Cup. And so that's where I think in the last, especially decade or so, where we've had now access to data and systems and things that can give us insights. It's not that the institutional knowledge or the experience is now scrapped and it's not useful. It's just now you can augment that with actual data. You can actually look at, I was right there, or maybe I was a little bit off here, and you can manage. So there is an adage: you can't manage what you don't measure. And with opening up data and looking at things differently, and then being professional in there, so you couple both human performance with technology for one unified, thrust, effort, and initiative. All that with like what you both were just saying about like CPAs and lawyers and the different levels, and especially as you were just ending there with, there's somebody who that's their entire job. That's what they do. This is what they live, breathe, eat. Maybe they went through the same process of a bunch of different jobs, and they landed here because they freaking love it, and this is what they do, and they do it well. You could have probably taught yourself finances. You could have probably figured out like there's different places I could put my money, and maybe the 5% thing. But this goes back to Brent too earlier on with taking on a marketing firm. Like there's definitely routes or paths that people could take where they do their own marketing and are probably successful at it. So like Brent, why did you choose to go with a marketing agency? And then I'd be curious, like Chan's, your perspective on it.
Yeah. So the reason we did it, so the lawyer part. So my wife was going through law school while we started the business. So she was in my ear constantly. Did you know this? Did you know that? You could be sued for this, all these different things. So anyway, so it was a pretty logical thing to do at the time. The accounting, it was my least favorite subject in school, in college. I absolutely hated it. I did not want to do anything with it. I knew I was not the expert. We were already starting to work in other states. And like some states, what we do is a taxable service. Some states is not. I didn't want to research all that, pay it, submit it, do all that stuff. So those two are pretty logical. The marketing for us, so we deal with mainly oil and gas customers. So big customers, not small ones. And they typically at that point in time, especially, did not necessarily like to do business with a small business, a tiny brand new startup with a 24-year-old, 25-year-old person. So I knew at that point I had to market myself to appear bigger than just a brand new startup. So we had to put some funds over there because that's how they were going to research us, especially in that time frame. So we did that to kind of help our sales process. So, hey, when people go to our website, oh, well, they appear to be at least a medium-sized company. I'm not afraid to do business with them. It wasn't a dishonest thing. It was still honest. Like we didn't portray ourselves differently we were, but we did not look like a brand new entity just started up a year or two ago. So that's the reason we put a lot into it at the beginning. Obviously, that need has evolved with time. That's why we switched from the current place we're at to Agile. So like Chan said earlier, you move as you need to as you grow and expand, and you find places that fit what you're needing at that time. So, but anyway, that's kind of my story with it.
There's a great exercise that people that are listening can take away from this that I do personally, and I have every member on my team do twice a year. It's called Elevate Delegate. I don't know if either one of you guys have ever heard of this. I absolutely love it. If you can just visualize real quickly, it's 4 quadrants. Basically, it's things that you're good at, things that you're not good at on the top, and I believe on the side, it's things that you like to do and things that you don't like to do. So the thought process and the logic is when you have things that you suck at and you hate doing them, you have got to get them off your desk. Now, if you're a startup and you're a one-man show, you're going to have to do everything, right? But maybe you can go afford that CPA to do your bookkeeping. But what I do is I look at this objectively all the time because those things in the quadrant that you suck at and you hate doing, they're eating you alive. So the faster, like Brent, you're like, I hated numbers. I hate numbers. That would have fallen in that quadrant from you at that time. This also evolves. This is why I have my team do it a couple of times a year. If I have a member on my team that has something in the bucket that they hate to do and they suck at, and that same task is somebody else's bucket that they love to do, that they're great at, I'm moving that. It makes everybody happier. It makes my team more productive. So I think when you look at these things, you can do that, whether it's marketing, taxes, whatever, legal work, whatever, I think you have to look at not only those things, but what you're doing in the operations of your business every day. But it's an awesome exercise. If anybody that's listening hasn't done it or hasn't heard of it, it's fantastic to do. The key is you've got to religiously do it at least like once a year because your business is going to evolve. Your team's going to evolve. Those duties are going to change, right? So it's an ongoing thing. But yeah, I deal with this a lot in the agency world where I talk to small startup businesses that are debating on whether or not they should hire an agency, or they should do it on their own. And look, I get the grind, at some stages in the game, Brent, you made the decision to go hire a marketing firm. A lot of people might not have any funds to even do that or access to a loan that can allow them to do that. So sometimes you do have to bootstrap things. That's just part of starting a business. But the way I always try to talk to young entrepreneurs about whether or not you should hire an agency is you've got to look at your time. And again, go back to this elevate, delegate operation here. Where is your time best spent to grow your business? And if it's running a Google Ads campaign because you've self-taught yourself and you feel like you're great at it and you enjoy doing it, then go run your Google Ads campaign. But if it's something that you're not going to educate yourself on and you're not going to spend time on every day, you need to find somebody that can because you're going to end up blowing your money. You need to find a professional, right? So I think that, this is an ongoing conversation I have with young entrepreneurs and startups all the time. It's just like, hey, look, like you can do this on your own, or I can even give you like some training wheels and help guide you to do this on your own. But is this the best utilization of your time to go run this? Is this what you should be doing to ensure that your company is growing at the best, fastest, yet most responsible rate possible? Is this what you want to do or should be doing? And that answer to that question is very rarely yes. Especially with contractors, man. These guys don't want to go learn how to run a Google Ads account. All they've done is use their hands and work in the field. And now they're trying to start something on their own to build a team and so on. You think these guys on average want to go learn how to run Google Ads? I mean, the answer is no. It's going to be no 99 out of 100 times. So you just got to be able to take that step back and ask yourself, is the best utilization of my time is to learn this and do this? And again, more often than not, it's not.
Yeah, I think to that point, and I've seen this as we've gotten bigger. So in the beginning, I didn't have the funds to hire the best of for every different thing. Sure. As we've gotten bigger, we have tried to hire the best or one of the best. And it's interesting and fun to watch how much better certain things have gotten, though. Like when you put the right person in the right position, or you hire the right law firm, or you hire whatever, and you put them where they belong, it's amazing how much easier like my life is by having 100%. Those. Yeah, it's crazy how much better that stuff is. Yeah. One thing I wanted to briefly ask you about, it's a little bit outside the marketing, but it's still about team building. So obviously we've worked with Jackie and Amber a lot in your office. And the one thing I'm impressed with is the level of like passion. So that speaks to like the culture you've created. Obviously you're also passionate. is there any tips or thoughts or stuff that you have around like culture building to build your own internal team up to like that level of to me it's all about passion. If you don't have that,
Yeah.
even if you're good, you're still not great because you're lacking passion. But anyway,
Yeah.
talk to me just a little bit about culture, Chance.
Man, I hire people, not paper. I've said that from day one. I hire people, not paper. Jackie was a teacher for a decade before I hired her. She had zero marketing experience, zero, in her younger 30s. I hired her because of the person that she was, the attributes that she had, the communication skills that she had, the communication that we could sit down and have conversations. I can teach somebody how to become a digital marketer. I can't teach somebody passion or love or happiness or all these things that you want in a partner in a business like this, right? Meaning a partner for you guys to us. So I hire people, not paper. I also have a very stringent interview process that I'll share quickly. Number one, I post on the same, if I can't find a referral, I post on the same job boards anybody else does. But I put spelling and grammar errors in that entire application. And I say at the bottom of it, do not submit your resume through this job board. However, please send your resume and cover letter to careers@agileandco.com, and please list out every spelling and grammar error within this job application. You guys would be amazed. 95% of people can't follow that simple direction. So my filter of people that have attention to detail, which is vital in what I do. I mean, hell, you put in $1,000 instead of 100 on one campaign, boom. And I've done it. I lost $40,000 in a weekend once, like 6 years ago, from an employee that had an extra zero. I had to refund the client. Wasn't pretty. But that attention to detail in what I do is vital. So I have that as a filter on the front end. So I'm only taking 5 out of 100 people just by default. I actually have the applications that come from the job boards just filtered to go directly to the trash in that email account. So not even in the inbox. I don't even see them. On paper, it could be the best candidate ever. But if you're that ignorant and that your care is that minimal that you can't even read till the end and follow one direction, you're not for me. So that's my filter. Then when I bring them in, most of my interview process is simply based around situational questions. If you were doing this and this happened, what would you do? I'm a big situational guy, okay? Because a lot of what we do are situations. Oh, we launched this campaign for let's just say you guys. It's plummeting. It's falling flat on its face. You guys are pissed. You need answers. What are you going to do? How are you going to handle that? So I build a lot of situations in my interview process because to me, that's how I can really tell who somebody is how they handle adversity. And it makes people uncomfortable as shit, right? But the ones that can handle it on the fly, and like I would take a step back, I would go ask this person, I would do this, handle it this way. When I love it when people are like, and then after that, I'd build a system. I'm like, yes, like tell me the number. I'm ready to write the check. But that's what I have done. But I think in a nutshell, it's all about people over paper. I really do not care. Do I love it when somebody has some experience? Well, hell yeah, that's less training and stuff that I have to do. But also in my industry, guys, my rule of thumb is 19 out of 20 digital marketing agencies are absolute shit. So sometimes having experience I'd rather train somebody from scratch and train them the right way, the way that we do things. So it's not always about that experience. But yeah, I'm on a bit of a tangent, but the bottom line is people over paper. I don't really care about resumes. I've never read a cover letter in my life.
Performance over pedigree.
Yeah, absolutely.
So what was your degree in?
Oh, I don't have one. I failed out of college.
Okay. Most people don't work in the field that they started or they got their degrees in or they got their certifications in. But we have a tendency to pigeonhole people into whatever their career was and define them based off of, well, you're an accountant. But you know what? They might have an amazing woodworking background or they might be stellar in like 3 other areas, but we always view them through the lens of, well, what job did you last do or what job do you do? And we I think it's changing now, but partially because of the job market, but starting to realize that we need to hire skills, we need to hire people, we need to hire performance. Because and it was Google, it was Laszlo Bock when he was the head of HR. So this is like 15 years ago or more. He did an interview and he said they stopped looking at degrees for hiring people because it was no longer the benchmark that this person's willing to put an effort and training and studying. It's they've got a stellar degree, but they're horrible at team performance or dynamics or grit or like all these other factors that make them. But then also with what you were saying earlier, things that you hate doing, find somebody in the organization that has a talent that loves to do that, give it to that traditional thinking. We're like, well, that's not their job. That's not what they were hired for. They're a front office staff. How do you have them doing something else? But having that creativity, I think more people are waking up that are leading organizations that black and white and maybe that methodology that we've been subscribing to that was neat to fit people into a neat little box and is broken, it doesn't work, and you have to get more creative. You have to think outside of the box in the sense that looking at true talent, performance over pedigree, people over paper. So I love the additional play on words there. Yeah.
So, guys, as we kind of wrap this up a little bit, we're getting to the hour mark. Chance, I want to put it back in your court just a little bit. Is there a couple just marketing tips that you would have for like not necessarily a brand new entrepreneur, but someone getting started, getting their feet wet? Maybe they're at that $1-2 million marketing business, kind of that beginning stage. What's a couple of just tips that you would give them?
Yeah, I love that question. I would say a couple of things. Number one would be learn your numbers. So we've spent a lot of time talking about data, and we have this access to data. I think that every entrepreneur has some level of responsibility to understand what the metrics that matter are. Do you need to understand what click-through rate is? Probably not. But you do need to probably understand what your cost per lead is and what your cost per acquisition or sale is. You probably need to understand, some 30,000 foot, high level metrics and numbers to set some benchmarks and figure out how you can improve on those in general. So I think that, a lot of entrepreneurs, especially contractors, they just want to like hand it off and not know anything about anything and just pay somebody to do it. And while I think that that's fine and I appreciate and respect that, I do think it's also your obligation as an entrepreneur to be able to look at some metrics and understand what those are. Like we love the clients that just trust us unconditionally because we are always going to do what's right. But in the same respect, it's better to have higher level education. And when you can wrap your arms around these metrics as an entrepreneur, you can come back and say, hey, look, I had this idea. What do you guys think about it? And we get in more of a team relationship than a vendor relationship. These circumstances, they work a lot better. The relationship works a lot better. There's more ideas. There's more campaigns. There's more concepts to try. Some of them will work. Some of them won't. But again, if you're just sitting on your hands doing monotonous shit every month, you're not going anywhere anyway. So I think that understanding basic common sense numbers, and look, this isn't rocket science. Google has every one of them for you. Okay. You can literally just Google them. But I think that's a big one. And then the other big thing that I would say is attribution, especially for contractors that do high volume. So let's take like an HVAC company. Okay. Service calls. It's what they do. A lot of these service-based contractors that have high volume, having attribution is so important for that. And the reason is, for those of you that don't understand what attribution is, you're attributing a lead or a sale back to the marketing source. So if you ran a Google ad and Joe Schmo clicked on your Google ad, went to a landing page and said, hey, I'm Joe Schmo. My air conditioner stopped working today. It's 105 heat index. Can somebody please get out? And then you take that lead and you turn Joe Schmo into a sale. We want to be able to attribute that sale back to that Google ad. So a CRM does this. A decent CRM does this for people, or it can be manually done with spreadsheets. But specifically, any high volume service-based business, having attribution set up makes your marketing team so much more powerful. Because as a marketing team, we don't know your sales. We don't know a good lead from a bad lead unless this is documented somewhere, right? So again, this comes really into play with higher volume guys, especially. But instead of us optimizing off of leads, I tell people this all the time. I can drive you 100,000 leads. If you don't make a single sale, are you going to be pumped about the $100,000 leads or the 100,000 leads? No, you're not. If I can drive you endless leads, but you never make a sale, who gives a shit about the leads? But when we have proper attribution channels set up, okay, and the client, or in this case, the contractor, the entrepreneur, actually notes that Joe Schmo turned into a new $5,000 air conditioning unit. Well, now I know, instead of optimizing off of leads, I'm optimizing off that sale. So I'm making marketing decisions based off of what actually matters, which is sales and money, rather than leads, which doesn't always tell the true story, or the whole story, I should say, right? So those would be the two things. Understand your high level numbers, be able to have an educated conversation with your partner agency, or maybe it's even an internal marketing manager, whatever the case is. And number two is attribution, attribution, attribution. Again, especially for high volume contractors, knowing that what turned into sales is so important to make sure we're optimizing your money and making sure it's going as far as it possibly can based off of what's making you money, not leads. So those would be the two biggest things.
Yeah, no, those are perfect. I have one final question, just as you were talking, it made me wonder it.
Yeah.
And you're the expert, so I ask you. Is it fair to say that like Meta and Google are pretty much pay to play now? Obviously, the quality of your content and video and all that stuff matters. But for those that are listening that think, hey, I can just throw this up out there and it's engaging, it'll grow my audience. It's pretty pay to play now, correct? Or, am I wrong?
I mean, how do they make money? Do they make money off your organic posts, or do they make money off you running an ad?
Yeah.
So if you owned either one of those companies, what would you do? You know what I mean?
Exactly.
People lose that train of thought where they think that, like these are publicly traded monstrous companies. This is how they make money, is by businesses running ads. They don't make $1 off of your organic posting. So if you take any preconceived notions or what you think or what you don't think or whatever, they have to make money, and they make money by you running ads. So to me, when you talk about both those platforms, you have the organic side, which would be just putting up an organic post on Facebook or SEO on Google, right? Where you're optimizing your website or writing a blog to make it show up in the search results organically down below the ads. So in both of them, you have the organic bucket. Those buckets only cost, as you said, your time, content, effort, resources to produce or write that content and put it up. Okay. When it comes to paying, that's a whole different animal. And it puts you in a position where you're able to reach, specifically on the social side, people that you never would without it, right? If somebody doesn't follow you, Brent, on your personal page, or you're not quote unquote friends with them on Facebook, and you put up a post that could be the most valuable piece of information for a young contractor, entrepreneur, whatever, nobody's going to see it other than the people that actually are friends with you. And even that, depending on what study you look at, the average is about 7%. So if you have 100 young contractors that would get value from your organic post on Facebook, 7 are actually going to see it. Now, obviously, the more interaction you get from people and things of that nature, which is why good content's important, the more people you're going to reach and get to. But to directly answer your question, they are pay to play. Really, anything when it comes down to marketing is pay to play. But I could also make an argument that, your organic content on social media, are you paying to get that produced? Are you putting your time in to get that produced? Well, that costs you money too, right? Mm-hmm. Same thing on Google. If you're doing SEO, are you paying somebody to build backlinks? Are you paying somebody to write that content? Are you paying somebody to optimize those pages? Yeah, you are. But yes, I think at the end of the day, when you look at any marketing channel, period, online, it is pay to play in today's world more than ever.
Yeah, no, that's kind of where I figured. It was a good analysis of it. And I think guys that are listening, take away from this podcast, if you don't know how to do it, hire someone to help do it. Number one. Number two, on the entrepreneurial side, if you're a little bit afraid to get started, realize you're not going to start on the perfect foundation. You just need to get started.
Yep.
I think Chan's, to kind of wrap this up, you're someone I've always loved talking to. Your heart for entrepreneurship, your passion, the way you explain it, all of that I think is spot on with the mindset that people need to have. The entrepreneurship game is really a chess game. It's a life chess game. It's not just in the beginning. It's not a make a bunch of money and then sit back and just enjoy the fruits of that labor later with no stress and no nothing else. It is a fun game for those who are built for it. Like, I love it. I couldn't imagine it any other way. When the stress comes, to me, it's all about, like, even self-improvement, really.
Yeah.
To me, all the different stresses and all the different things that get thrown at you, I'm a better person today than I was 10 years ago because of those things. But I've chosen to learn from them. I've chosen to lean into them. But I'm a better person today than I was then. But Chance, always a pleasure to have you, talk to you. Would love to have you on again. Those of you guys listening, if you love the podcast, please do share it. Professor, thank you. Next time.
Always been.
Yes. Next time. That's lit.
Emily, my wife wouldn't appreciate that.
No.
Yeah, you got two littles in the house, so.
Yeah.
But Chance.
Yeah, no, thank you guys both for having me, man.
Yeah.
I appreciate it. Love these conversations, and always willing to jump back on with you guys. These are fun for me, so I enjoy them.
Awesome. Well, thank you, Chance. Appreciate it. Travis, appreciate it. You guys be good. See ya.